This week will be the second full week of Lent, and today I want to talk about the kingdom come as the kingdom of faithfulness. A lot of folks will tell you that Paul was the first missionary as he traveled around the Roman world and set up churches after he became a Christian. I would argue, however, that the first missionary was actually Amos, a guy who was born in Judah 700 or 800 years before Jesus Christ was even born. God gave him a message and then called him to leave his home of Judah in the south and head north to the kingdom of Israel. Israel had a problem. Due to bad leadership and wicked kings, they had abandoned the practice of justice and righteousness. They had abandoned right relationship with both God and with neighbor. This was particularly true during the reign of Jeroboam II, who came to power in 786 BC, just before Amos began his mission trip to the north. Under Jeroboam II's reign and following his example, the people of Israel had failed to care for the least among them, especially for those who struggled the most in their nation: the orphan, the widow, and the immigrant. These folks represented those who had the least amount of power and voice in the nation of Israel, those who were in need of the love and grace of God's people more than anyone. And yet, even though Israel had fallen into this pattern of wickedness, they continued to worship God through music and festivals and sacrifices, as if those were the only things that God had required. Needless to say, this not only made God very upset and angry, it also turned his stomach. God was both disgusted and disappointed with the people of Israel, and he sent Amos to them to tell them as much. The message that Amos delivered to the people of Israel is the same message that he speaks to us today. The kingdom come, the kingdom of God, is a kingdom of faithfulness. A kingdom whose citizens practice daily the patterns of justice and righteousness, looking out for the least and embodying the love and grace that God has poured out into our lives. The truth is, it's not enough to sing hymns and read liturgy. It's not enough to come to church on Sunday and go to Bible study on Wednesday. It's not even enough to write checks and contribute to the resources of other people who serve, as Paul reminds us in Romans chapter 12. Our act of spiritual worship is to become living sacrifices. That is, to commit ourselves daily to doing the work of our faith and to serve those around us, especially those who so desperately need to see and feel the love and grace of God. This is true justice and righteousness. It is the pattern of faithfulness that marks the kingdom of faithfulness and makes up the kingdom come, which we are all part of through Jesus Christ.